to late November or even in 2021. With us now is Waikato University Professor of International Law, Alexander Gillespie. Professor Gillespie, welcome to the program.
G'day, Wallace.
To that question of the election being pushed back, can that actually be done?
Well, once Parliament's dissolved and the writ with the date on it is issued, it's set in concrete. But right now, the dissolution of Parliament's been postponed for a few days, and that means there'll be time to think about when they actually set that date. So the date has not been done, but you need to do it soon because you've got a lot of things to get in order, everything from polling booths to overseas votes. So we have to be moving forward towards that date.
Is there a precedent at all for moving an election?
You can, once the election's set in stone, like once Parliament's dissolved and the writ's there, it's there. That's going to be the date. But there's amendments within the Electoral Act which give you flexibility to deal with it effectively in times of emergency or disruption, where you can have some kind of movement around the way that you'll get people to vote. But the main thing to note right now, though, is that the Prime Minister is within her powers to set the date for the election.
What other constitutional issues are involved here that we need to be mindful of?
This is our most fundamental liberty, our most core right to our democracy, is about when we vote. And you go right back to the 17th century or the 18th century, our right to have regular elections and to vote in those is core to what we are. Whether they're postponed for a short period or not postponed will cause a lot of political debate.
Right, Professor of International Law, Alexander Gillespie, thank you very much for your time. And to that, what do you think, around the panel, do you think that, Shane, I think you're back there with a bit of a...
I'm back on track.
Oh,
yes.
Nice.
How's that?
Moving the election date, is there anything to what Judith Collins says in this?
Well, I think that particularly with the Prime Minister, damned if you do, damned if you don't. What I do say is that I don't think you need to make the decision today. The moving the disillusionment of Parliament was a smart move to make. And let's just see how it plays out over the next little while. Remember, folks, we've had elections during world wars and we've had elections during other pandemics. So I think we just need to take a collective deep breath and just see how things play out. I think that the leader of the opposition's call was a little bit premature, to be honest.
Cindy?
Well, I'm wondering who it would actually benefit. If we push the election back, and Judith, having called to push the election back, must figure out that giving her more time is going to, give her a better chance at becoming the next Prime Minister. Really, if we smash round 2 of COVID and, Jacinda rides as high as she did last time, you might find that it gives Labor a much greater majority than one could have possibly.
Do you buy anything? This particular conference, some people have noted on text that there was that they weren't quite sure of the tone of Judith Collins or why indeed it was it had to happen. Do you think that the government, Shane, needs to be a bit more transparent with the leader of the opposition? Do you think they need to be brought into the tent more, or do you think that this felt like a bit of politicking?
A little bit of politicking. I think that, yes, that the leader of opposition ought to be brought in the tent a little bit more. Funnily enough, we spoke about, I know I was a bit crackly, we spoke about the announcement last night. I saw that, some of the political operatives of the National Party were sort of had the story, and then I find out today that perhaps Judith Collins gave it to them. So if you want the responsibility, you've got to take the responsibility and you have to be responsible.
Edwin says, yes, this has thrown some people and others are feeling sad or angry, but we have been warned from day one. This is the marathon, not the sprint. Remember, we have good leadership, superb expertise, and collectively a lot of courage. Let's show our backbone together. The panel are RNZ National, the news, and then coming into the stand-up with the Prime Minister and the Director, or Dr. Ashley Bloomfield.
RNZ News at 4. Good afternoon. Ko Kainwin Curtis Tiene. Health authorities scrambling to contact hundreds of people with connections to the 4 latest cases of COVID. Contact tracing is underway to try to stop the transmission of the disease and hopefully find its source. Nearly 300 workmates are considered contacts of 2 of the infected people. The Director General of Health says they'll be contacted by the National Contact Tracing Centre, which deals with uncomplicated tracking. The more detailed contact tracing will be done by the Auckland Regional Public Health Service. It has increased its capacity in recent months to be able to trace the contacts of 120 cases a day. Extra testing clinics are opening in Rotorua after it was revealed some members of the Auckland family who have tested positive visited the city. Lakes DHB says clinics in Rotorua and Taupo have been very busy today and traffic management has had to be put in place. Pop-up clinics will operate for the next 3 days and existing centres will open for longer each day. The police will be turning drivers around in the Auckland region today if they're not travelling for valid essential business. 9 checkpoints ringing the northern and southern city fringes have been set up after the imposition of Level 3 lockdown restrictions. About 20 police staff are at a checkpoint in the Bombay Hills. The road policing team supervisor for Counties Manukau, Sergeant Andrew Heath, says they've set up separate systems for commercial and light vehicles.
All light vehicles travelling will be directed off the motorway, where they will encounter staff on a checkpoint who will ascertain whether their business is essential or not, and then they'll be directed either to travel on their way or return to where they've come from.
Sergeant Andrew Heath. The National leader is calling for the election to be delayed until November. Judith Collins says she and her health spokesperson have been trying all day to get a briefing from the government and health officials and have been ignored. She says that's unacceptable this close to an election and it's important to New Zealand that there is full transparency. Ms Collins says the Prime Minister should decide today to delay the election.
It is simply unsustainable to expect there to be a fair and just election at a time when the opposition parties are not free to campaign, but also when people have no certainty as to whether or not they're going to be able to personally cast their vote.
Judith Collins says she would not support an election that was based on postal votes. Jury trials in the Auckland region have been suspended once again while trials elsewhere in the country will pause for 24 hours. The Chief Justice says jurors summoned to attend or currently serving on trials and courts in Auckland are excused for the week. The head of the Countdown supermarket chain says shorter opening hours will apply from tomorrow. There's been panic buying in supermarkets across Auckland, with reports of similar in Wellington before Alert Level 3 came into effect at midday across the Auckland region. Countdown's General Manager Kiri Hannafin says the rush began last night when staff were hit suddenly with crowds of shoppers. She says stores around the country are busy and opening hours will change from tomorrow so shelves can be restocked and to reduce pressure on staff.
So our stores will open later at 8 o'clock and finish earlier at 9, just again so we can give our team a breather, we can restock our stores and, just because we want it to be, as controlled environment as possible.
People are reminded there is no need to panic buy. The final round of netball's ANZ Premiership has been called off due to change in COVID-19 alert levels around the country. Netball New Zealand has declared all matches a draw but still hopes to go ahead with the finals weekend in Invercargill next week, where the defending champions, the Central Pulse, will play the Mainland Tactics in the grand final. The decision to make all matches a draw has had no effect on placings for the final series. And that's the news.
COVID comes back and so do the restrictions.
I think there'll probably be a police presence on the borders of the city. Outside of Auckland, don't come into the city. If you are living in Auckland, you're not to go outside of the Auckland boundaries.
Can't see how we can have the government saying, well, it's all just fine and we'll get the Electoral Commission to do some postal ballots or something. That's not going to be acceptable.
And we want to let New Zealanders know that when you do come into our stores, you'll be safe and there'll be enough food. Just trust us. We looked after you last time with food.
With you at every level. Morning Report, weekdays from 6, on air and online.
And we're expecting to cross to the Prime Minister and Director General of Health during, or at any moment now actually. And we may get time for the mountain forecast, but first the short forecast from Met Service to midnight Thursday. Northland, a few showers. Coromandel, showers becoming isolated this afternoon and then clearing overnight. Auckland to Kapiti Coast, including Bay of Plenty, Taupo and Taumaranui, fine spells. Gisborne, Hawke's Bay and Taihape, rain easing to isolated showers. Showers clearing in Taihape this evening and elsewhere tomorrow. Wairarapa and Wellington, a few showers clearing this evening and fine spells developing. Showers returning to Wellington tomorrow night. Kaikoura Coast and Canterbury, isolated showers clearing this afternoon. Showers returning south of Ashburton tomorrow morning and elsewhere later. The remainder of Marlborough, also Nelson, Buller and Westland, fine apart from isolated showers in Buller, spreading to Westland tomorrow. Otago, Southland, Fiordland, a few showers mainly about the coast. Showers spreading elsewhere tomorrow morning and snow lowering to 400 metres in the south. And the Chatham Islands, cloudy periods, a few showers tomorrow evening. And now the Met Service forecast for the mountains up to midnight on Thursday, 13th of August. That we'll head back to the panel after the news conference. The North Island, Raukumara to Kāweka Ranges, also Tongariro National Park, periods of rain and snow to about 1,100 metres, easing to a few showers this afternoon, then gradually clearing from the south tomorrow. Egmont National Park, also Ruahine Range, cloudy periods and the odd shower clearing tomorrow morning. Snow to about 1,300 metres. Tararua Range, mostly cloudy with a few showers clearing tomorrow morning. Snow flurries to about 1,200 metres. Winds will be strong southerlies, gale in exposed places, easing this afternoon. And the freezing level is to about 2,000 metres, lowering to about 1,200 metres in the south and east later this afternoon. The South Island, Kaikoura Ranges, partly cloudy with a few showers clearing this afternoon, showers returning tomorrow evening. Kahurangi and Nelson Lakes National Parks and the Southern Alps, mainly fine isolated showers about Kahurangi National Park clearing tomorrow evening. Showers developing about the Southern Alps, falling as snow in the east tomorrow afternoon. For Fiordland, cloudy with occasional showers clearing tomorrow evening and showers turning to snow tomorrow morning. The winds will be strong south to southwest winds. The freezing level 1,200 metres, lowering to 500 metres in the far south tomorrow evening. RNZ National, it's 12 and a half minutes past 4. I'll have headlines at 4:30, news and weather again and Checkpoint at 5.
Kia ora, welcome to the panel. RNZ National with me today, Cindy Mitchener and Shane Tepo. A bit of response to that last item we had. Tim in Upper Hutt says, not fair to fight an election campaign with the Prime Minister on TV most days. Either delay the election or form a COVID coalition with the National Party or bring Judith Collins into discussions at very least. Another one here. As expected, streams of traffic arriving at Batches here in Cook's Beach. Chemist reports scripts being redirected from Auckland addresses to Whitianga to be uplifted. Selfish 09ers. Our locals are elderly and our local med systems are fragile and can't cope. Now, we are waiting on the Prime Minister's stand-up, or Prime Minister and Dr. Ashley Bloomfield. That is to start at any moment. But while we are waiting, we didn't get time for our I've Been Thinking in the pre-panel. So, Cindy Mitchener, would you like to start?
Okay, well, and of course...
Oh, no, here we go. We cross...
Kia ora koutou and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us again for our 4 o'clock update. We are now 4 hours into Level 3 lockdown in Auckland and Level 2 restrictions in the rest of New Zealand as we roll out our plan to quickly stamp out the re-emergence of COVID outside of our managed isolation facilities. Our plan of mass testing, rapid contact tracing, and of course our restrictions to stop the chain of transmission has been in full swing in Auckland today. I will begin, as I did this morning, by handing over to Dr. Bloomfield to provide an update on what more we've learnt about cases, the action that has been taken on those cases, and the contact tracing around them. I'll then come back and give an update on other matters such as mask distribution, telehealth services, support for businesses that may be in urgent need of support in the near future, and then we'll conclude and take questions. Dr. Bloomfield.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Kia ora koutou katoa. So just to start off with, there is one additional new case of COVID-19 to report in a managed isolation facility today. So that's in addition to the 4 confirmed cases that we reported last evening in the Auckland community and that were announced yesterday. There are also an additional 4 probable cases who are people with symptoms linked to the 4 community-based cases we talked about last night and earlier this morning. All of these probable cases are awaiting test results. We will make available the test results as soon as we have them, but they are all being treated as probable cases and therefore are in full isolation, and full contact tracing has been initiated for those cases. The case that is in a managed isolation facility is a woman in her 50s who arrived in New Zealand on the 7th of August from Islamabad via Dubai. She has been in managed isolation since, and her positive test result was returned when she had a test at around day 3 of her stay. She is now in the Auckland quarantine facility. So our total number of confirmed cases is now 1,225. 5 of the previously reported cases have recovered, so the number of active cases remains at 22, none of whom require hospital level care. Yesterday our labs processed 4,225 tests. That brings the total of number of tests completed to date over the 500,000 mark, and the total is 502,705. I'd just like to provide an update on the Rotorua situation, which I mentioned this morning. We now have a little more information I'd like to share, and we will have more information that we will make available on our website and through media updates as the day progresses. Based on the information we do have, we are confident that the visit to Rotorua of the 4 family members, 2 of whom have subsequently returned a positive test, has not resulted in anyone who is classified as a close contact. However, we are taking a very precautionary approach, as you know, and the family, in the time they were in Rotorua, which was between the 8th and 11th of August, visited a number of locations, including eateries. I don't have the specific information on those as yet, but as soon as we do, and have notified those businesses and have the time and dates that they were there, we will publicise that. What I can tell you is that we can confirm 3 locations. The first is that the family stayed at the Waiora Lakeside Hotel from the 8th to the 11th of August. And 2 of the visits they undertook were to the Skyline Gondola and Lodge, which was on the 9th of August from 4 till 6 p.m, and the Heritage Farm and 3D Art Gallery on the 10th of August between 3 and 4 p.m. So as we find out more detail about other locations that they visited, we will make that available, and we will also send out an alert via the NZ COVID Tracer app, so people who were at those locations at the time and on the date that we talked about, and who scanned in with the app, which I hope people did, they will be made aware as well through that means. In the meantime, from a health perspective, we remain confident that alert level 2 is the right level for Rotorua, and the advice doesn't change. Anyone who was in those locations at that period should be aware of symptoms, whether they are from Rotorua or were visiting from out of town. Testing in our managed isolation and quarantine facilities is progressing alongside our community testing, and as the Prime Minister mentioned this morning, between Auckland and our facilities in Rotorua and in Christchurch and in Wellington, there are between 6,000 and 7,000 people to test, and testing was underway from this morning at all those sites. And we know that DHBs have a plan in place to ensure that all people who fall into that category are tested over coming days. Auckland is clearly the majority of those people and where we will be concentrating the effort. An update on contact tracing. As of around midday, just over 200 close contacts had been identified, and over 100 of those have already been phoned and spoken with. Most of those contacts are from 2 workplaces, and those people had been told last evening or this morning to remain at home. The workplaces are closed, and to stay at home until they were contacted and given further instructions. What I would like to do at this point in time, though, is just to back that up with an action that I can take under the Health Act. And because I think there is a serious and significant risk to the public with the spread of COVID-19 in communities in Auckland, as a National Medical Officer of Health, I'm taking the significant and serious step of making an oral direction under Section 70 of the Health Act 1956. So I require the following people to do two things, that is to isolate at their usual home and to not go out to work and remain isolated until they are contacted by our National Contact Tracing Service and they receive further direction. And that direction applies to the following people, if you could listen carefully. Any employees or contractors of two employers. One is Americold in the Mount Wellington suburb in Auckland, and the other is the company Finance Now, and that is the Dominion Road branch in Auckland. I would also say that the direction applies to the following, and that is any visitors to those workplaces in the last 14 days, and any people who ordinarily live with those employees or contractors or visitors. Now, recall that both these workplaces are in Auckland, and Auckland in toto is now under an Alert Level 3 arrangement. So people will be staying at home anyway, everybody, unless they are going out to work or to access an essential business like a pharmacy or a supermarket. If any of those people who I'm currently directing to remain at home require advice to assess financial assistance while in isolation as directed, please call Work and Income on the following number, 0800 559 009. And I will put this direction also on the covid19.govt.nz website. Prime Minister, I think I'll hand back to you there.
Thank you, Dr. Bloomfield. Just to recap, you can see that we continue to ramp up our efforts to get on top of this re-emergence and are taking the steps of ensuring that we're not using just one way, but up to 3 ways to try and reach individuals who we are asking to follow the Director General's orders issued today. So firstly, those workplaces have themselves contacted their employers. We have contact tracing underway, and you will have heard that we've got roughly 200 contacts, good progress being made, and roughly 160 people working in that contact centre. So you can see that the ratio of calls they're having to make is low, so they're working through them very quickly. But the third step we're taking is to use a public platform to notify people directly as well. So those are the steps we're taking to make sure we get those individuals into isolation as quickly as possible. The COVID Cabinet Committee met at 1 p.m. today, chaired by myself, and included the Deputy Prime Minister. All other ministers inside Cabinet were invited to attend as well. We were updated on the cases that we are actioning and other work that we are undertaking as we roll out our resurgence plan. Ministers will convene again tomorrow, and it was also agreed that a full Cabinet meeting will make decisions on Friday on next steps. Our aim will be to make sure that those decisions are in time to inform people of any changes well in advance of the Friday midnight setting we have for our Level 3 and Level 2 restrictions at present. At noon today, a new COVID-19 public health response order came into effect. The order provides the legal basis to require people to stay at home unless they are working in places where it is safe to do so, to ensure physical distancing and the conditions under which businesses can operate. Nothing in the order there in that regard is new relative to what we all experienced at Level 3 previously. They're all in keeping with those previous requirements, with just 2 exceptions. And I want to spend a bit of time just talking about those 2 exceptions that are new from what we experienced the last time we were in Level 3. So this is particularly important. First, the order makes it mandatory for any business or service to display a QR code for the COVID Tracer app prominently at all entry points, allowing everyone to sign in via the tracing app. So what is mandatory is the display of that QR code. We have allowed 1 week in order for business to be compliant. We understand that some businesses have not yet downloaded the QR code. We ask them to do that as soon as possible, but before it will be enforced, there's a week grace there to allow that to happen. Many businesses, as you'll note, have done that already because you'll see them on display. The ability to contact trace quickly is one of the key tools we have to find new cases and get them in isolation to avoid future lockdowns. So always using the app is a big investment in keeping our businesses and economy open. It will protect you and it will protect the people around you. Last night, over 100,000 people downloaded the app, and I would urge anyone who hasn't done so yet to get the app on their phone and get into the habit of signing into places. I can tell you from personal experience, it is very quick and it is very easy to use. The second new element of the health order is something I already briefly touched on this morning, and that is the requirement for people travelling out of Auckland to wear a face covering on a plane. We are specific to planes here because of the close proximity. Of course, we continue to ask people to only use this form of transport if they are leaving Auckland because it is not their primary place of residence and they need to relocate themselves. While we are not requiring everyone else in Auckland to wear